All right, let me start this timer so I can somewhat stay on track. Yeah, well, I'm slightly nervous, but I guess that's kind of usual. All right, how it was. Okay. I mean, I grew up. I'd like to blame alcoholism on having a rough childhood and, like all this poor me. I had a rough life. I grew up in the mean streets of Torrance, California. I had a perfectly loving mother and father who were there and had all my everything I ever wanted. Um, I mean, alcohol was present. I mean, but everyone just drank normally, I thought. And I know for me, like I never knew anything was wrong. Like I just did what I did, and like it was always something. Before I got into the drugs and alcohol, like it was chasing girls, chasing cars, always. I never felt quite enough. Even when I was little, when I would play soccer, I'd be running, playing the game as hard as I could, never feeling good enough, always wanting to be something more than I was. And like it carried on throughout my younger childhood. And like I said, then I got into the cars, and then I always had to have the fastest car, or what I thought was, because God forbid, I always tried to be what I thought was the cool kid, and I never understood that empty feeling that I had inside of me. So I tried to fill it with girls, parties, and just doing the stuff that we do. And life didn't start to take a turn for me until like I was 19. There was what? Closer? Hello? All right. All right. Hello? All right. So life it was all I didn't even really like drinking up until that point. Like I said, I filled my hole with girls and cars and all the stupid stuff that young kids do. When I was 19 years old, my dad died. And then I didn't know it then, but I was a good kid because I was scared of him. Not because he beat me or nothing like that. I just wanted to be a good kid to him. And I was scared to death. But once he died, I didn't have fear anymore. So then the pills kind of filtered into my life, and then the drinking too much. And I didn't even realize I was running because I was tough. I remember at his funeral, I remember making myself not cry because that's what men do, right? So I just kept trying to bury those feelings with pills and alcohol, and it just got progressively worse. I didn't even realize I was a drug addict when I was a drug addict. I was taking 30 to 40 Norcos a day. I had like a decent job, and the alcoholism kicked in. I didn't even, like I said, I didn't even realize I was a drug addict till I woke up in a rehab, not even knowing how I got there or why I was there. It was just because I took too many pills. I was like, I'll just change from those pills to these pills. Maybe take less Xanax and more Norcos, or maybe I won't drink Jack Daniels tonight. I'll drink more beer or whatever. So I started trying to do that, and it just progressively got worse because I had no idea what being a drug addict or an alcoholic was. So I just kept doing it and just kept going, inching my way down and down. And little did I know I was just burning my life to the ground, and I had no idea I was doing it. And then I remember I broke up with my girlfriend at the time, and I somehow fell into smoking meth. I'm sure a few of you guys know about that around here. And that put me on the fast path. I think I was in. I burned my life complete. I'm a poster child for drug addiction and alcohol addiction. I burned my life to the ground within 6 months. I had like a good job, 2 hot rods, cool apartment by the beach. Within 6 months, I think I was in county jail with nothing. I had no cars, no nothing. And then again, had no idea why I was there. And then they tried to let me out and go to rehab. And I went to rehab. I'm not a drug addict because I had no idea about what it is or what it does to you. So then it kept snowballing and snowballing, and then I went to prison, and it just kept being loaded in there. Because, again, like I had no idea about being a drug addict. I thought I was cool. I wanted to be a gangster. Now I'm hanging out with a bunch of gangsters, and you kind of fit in there, and I can get along pretty much anywhere. And I did, and I got in, and I was loaded till I was like 6 months to the house, and I looked around. I am not going home to my family like this. And then I hit my knees and I prayed every night. And somehow that weight got lifted off to me enough. I came home clean. But then I thought I could still drink. And that's where King Alcohol comes back in. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm a drug addict. Right? Well, I found out real quick that, fast girls and alcohol leads to cocaine and leads right back down to the path I was at. And I continued to burn my life to the ground for the next couple years in and out, and I just couldn't figure out why I was getting loaded when I didn't even want to be loaded. I don't even like myself when I'm loaded. So why do I keep doing this? There's like a 2-week recycle. Every 2 weeks, boom, boom, boom. Till I finally walked into Torrance Memorial meeting, and I seen that big old gorilla over there, and I was strung out. I had a bunch of dope in my pocket, and I did not want to be loaded, and somehow I was still loaded. And I sat down and somebody talked to me and asked me if I was okay. And I said, no, I'm not. I got a bunch of dope and I don't want to be loaded. Well, that guy ended up being my sponsor and it changed my life. He taught me that my mind creates, if I have one drink of alcohol, one sniff or one line of anything, it creates a mental obsession in my life that I cannot control. And that was like a life-changing moment for me when I learn about it's not just me. Like I am, my problem centers in my mind. And I just did the simple things that man asked me to do and just continued. There's a lot of relapse in my story. My wife now has found me dead multiple times because I continue to think I know how to drive, and I don't. I am not perfect. The only thing I've ever done right in this program is I have never given up. I continue to come back no matter what. And every time I've gotten better, I've learned what I've done wrong. This program has given me everything. The job I always wanted, the wife I always wanted, all the cars, the boats, whatever. I have a beautiful daughter, and I can go home and rest my head because I talk to my sponsor. I do the stuff I'm supposed to do. I do my best to work those steps. I'm still an idiot, mostly on a daily basis. But I get another shot at it tomorrow. And when I'm an asshole, I can apologize to people. What a foreign idea to me. To an idiot like me, to go apologize to someone, it's just these simple things that are on the steps that seem gay to me. If you would have told me 10 years ago that coming here and holding a bunch of dudes' hands and fucking saying a prayer was going to keep me sober, I said, you're higher than I am, bud. But it does. That is all I do. I talk to my sponsor. I do my best to live like this, and most of the time I can't. But I do my fucking best, no matter what. And tomorrow, if I screw up today, I do my best tomorrow to be a good person. And these are all things, simple things to normal people, but not to me. These are all things I had to learn in here. To show up to work, to not get loaded, do my best to be a good person, try and help another alcoholic. Like I said, I'm forever grateful for this program. It's changed my life. It's all the simple things. I can't even put into words what this program has given me. It's besides all, yes. Besides all the material things, I get to come spend my Saturday night to here spewing a bunch of bullshit. At least that's how it feels to me. But I get to go home tonight and sleep with my beautiful daughter, my wife, in a house that I own, and go to a job on Monday that I've always dreamed of. And all I do is come here and hold a bunch of dudes' hands and do my best to be a good person. Thanks.
All right. We'll start with the serenity prayer. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Now our main speaker will share his experience, strength, and hope with us. Please join me in welcoming Anthony.
My name is Anthony. I'm an alcoholic. First of all, I want to thank Keith for allowing me to participate in my sobriety. I want to welcome the newcomers. I want to thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous. I want to thank God for good sponsorship, and I want to thank God for the 12 steps. Hopefully I carry the message and not the mess. We all know how to carry the mess, right? And there's a couple of people in this room that know my story probably better than I do, so I got to tell the truth, unfortunately. I grew up in the rough streets of Hermosa Beach. It's 1 square mile by a mile and a half by a mile and a half, and my grandparents were well-known business owners in that city, and my mom was a bartender at night and a waitress during the day. She was busy, and I already felt uncomfortable and different because, I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house, and my grandma was amazing. She didn't drink, she didn't cuss, she didn't smoke, she gave me whatever she felt I needed, and took care of me. But, other people got to go home to their parents, and I was going home to my grandmother, and my mom was working, and she was busy, and all of those things. And I couldn't have told you that until I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. And now I understand it, right? And then, I guess I was smart, strong, athletic, advanced pretty quickly at a lot of the things that I did when I was young. And one of the things that they advanced me in baseball, but my grandpa was pretty hardcore gentleman from Oklahoma who didn't really take anybody's stuff and told me to not ever express my feelings, not to show them, just to push through them. And, so here I am, a young kid, thinking I'm supposed to have this and not express myself to anybody. And, they advanced me in baseball. I remember now, looking back at it, and I'm a firm believer that I was an alcoholic way before I ever took a drink, right? There's stories that they couldn't keep me in my seat, they couldn't keep my mouth shut in grade school. And that was way before I even found alcohol. And they advanced me in baseball, and here I am now, this kid that's scared, and they're older kids, and they're stronger kids, and I had all this fear, and it just didn't become important. It became less important to me, right? And I wasn't able to ask for help, and how do I do this, and how do I advance? And I just pushed it aside, and that's one of those things that kicked me in the butt for a lot of years. My mom moved around a little bit. She met a gentleman when I was in like 5th grade, I think, and she moved to the Valley. I went to the Valley with her, the Brady Bunch. He had 3 kids. He wasn't who he said he was. On paper, he was a fraud. He owed a lot of money, and my mom had all this money in the bank, and she had to spend it all, but that has nothing to do with anything other than I went there and it didn't work out, so I came back to my grandma's, right? I did well there, though. I was in a private school. I tested. I did well. Got A's and B's, had to remember Bible verses and all of this stuff, and I did really well there. And came back to Hermosa Beach and junior high school. I was such a pain in the neck at Hermosa Valley that the principal at the time thought it would be a great idea to allow me to advance to high school. Now looking back on it, now it would be illegal, first of all, but second of all, like 8th grade teaches you a lot of stuff that prepares you for high school. Now here I am, this strong athletic kid that could have played football. I was fast, I was strong, I was aggressive. And so here I am, a freshman in high school. Physically, Donnell wanted me to play sports, but I couldn't play sports. And academically, I wasn't there, but I didn't know how to ask you to help me become academic so I could play sports. And here I am supposed to be thinking I'm a man and I can do this. I'm supposed to have this. I got this. And, a buddy of mine was dating this girl and said that let's have a party at Lori Ladd's house. Lori Ladd's parents were leaving town, and I was the only one that could drive the stick shift. And we went to Lori Ladd's house, and we threw a party. And back then, snorting no-dos was a good idea. And we were drinking Strawberry Hill and snorting no-dos. And I knew how to drive a stick shift, and the people at the pier had back in those days, they had this piece of paper that was perforated, and you could eat it, and it would do interesting things to you. And so I went down there to get some of those items and take them back to the house, and I got a parking ticket. And I was the only one that knew how to drive a stick. Needless to say, the end of the story is those girls puked and ruined the carpet in the bathroom. The parking ticket came back to me. The clutch got burned out because somebody else tried to drive it, and my grandma was pissed. And she had to pay that bill. And that was my first introduction to ouch. And like I said, my grandma was a sweetheart. Like no matter from kindergarten till 12th grade, that lady suited up and showed up and did her best. And she already raised her kids. She raised my uncle, she raised my mom, but she took me on anyways because she loved me so dearly. And she'd take me to high school, and she'd show up to the front and I'd leave the back. And, for me, alcohol was it was a party, and then it was a party and a lifestyle, and then it was a party and a lifestyle that I just couldn't stop, and it was always consequences. I always got in trouble, but somehow when I was younger, it was unscathed. Granny always got me out of it, and it wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't that serious. That wasn't that bad, and that's my alcoholic brain lying to me, right? High school, I got 12 credits, so that tells you how that worked out for me. Supposed to have 225 to graduate. And I did the tour. I started out at Redondo, I ended up at Pacific Shores, and then I ended up at Sherry. And always my not being able to play nice in the sandbox got caught up with me and got me in trouble. And that was, I don't want to say it's my grandfather's fault, but that's just the way he was. Take nobody's stuff. We'll talk about it later, right? And I hung out with older people that hung out at the pier. So I'm 13, 14 years old. These guys are all in their 20s. And I got the short end of the stick, and it was either defend yourself or become a victim. And I learned how to unnecessarily defend myself, and got me in a little bit of trouble. And then when I was 22 years old, this lady didn't really like what was going on at her dad's house. We started dating. Somehow she got pregnant. My mom thinks it was by osmosis because I was never there. And she decided that it would be a great idea to move in with me and my grandmother. Sure, why not? We live 6 houses from the water in Hermosa Beach. Embarrassing now that I think about it. She's pregnant. I went to get milk. And by now, this, it's no longer a party. I think the party was probably over in high school. The parties, the kegers, the beach, the 4th of July. If you grew up in the South Bay, it was just amazing. The backyard parties, the kegers, had a lot of fun. The problem is everybody else went on to live their lives, and I'm still having fun, right? And this lady gets pregnant, and she takes me serious, and now I'm thinking in my head that this is going to be amazing. I'm working for this construction. A pretty good friend of mine now started out, he was writing license plate numbers down and was going to call law. Let me backtrack a little bit. At 13, my mom ended up going to prison, and I didn't know her past prior to having me. So when I'm 14 years old and I need a mama the most, and my dad wasn't around, and I'm going through those things that guys go through, emotions and feelings and all of that stuff, right? My mom's in the penitentiary, and my grandmother's raising me, and she's trying to take me to school, and it wasn't a good situation. It was a good situation because my grandma was amazing and she suited up for me. If it wasn't for her, I probably wouldn't be standing at this podium today talking to you. Needless to say, the girl gets pregnant. I decide, I'm drinking 101 proof schnapps, and I go to the liquor store to get some milk and end up at this backyard party in the 30th Street in Hermosa. One thing leads to another. I make a really bad decision. Somebody almost lost their life, and never once did I think, oh my God, what's going to happen to him? What I thought was what's going to happen to me. And I'm not sharing this with you because oh my God, he's a scary individual. I'm sharing you with this with you because I suffer from selective amnesia. First of all, it's my story, and it's a huge pivotal point in my life because it changed me pretty drastically. And it happened at the time my mom was bartending at the back street in Redondo Beach. And I left the situation, went to my mom's bar and told her what had happened. And she said, "Are you out of your mind?" And I just kind of laughed it off. What else am I supposed to do, right? And I ended up obviously going to the gated community. And somehow, some way, they let me out on house arrest. I got on house arrest to see that boy be born. Because I spent 9 months in the county jail acting as if, because I'm an innocent kid from the beach. What am I doing? I need my skateboard, and where's the sand? And I get out to see that kid born, and the smart individual that I am, I got a 100-foot extension cord, a cordless phone, and a 100-foot phone cord, and I had the monitor on my grandma's porch, and I'm at the beach on the cordless phone. Every time they called, I'd answer the phone. Living, so I thought a normal life, right? One of the neighbors didn't really appreciate that, and they came and picked me up. And then that's just, and I'm thinking I'm having a good time and I'm partying. But that poor lady and that poor kid, I think he was just a little guy. He's 29 years old today, but fast forward, because I really don't want to glorify the behavior. These are just really strong, pivotal points in my life that really changed me and caused me to do bad things to myself, and I didn't even know it till later on, right? I ended up, when I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous in September 16th of 2013, I was escorted into the back of 825 Maple Avenue. And I don't know if you're familiar with that place, but it's a 5-story, well-constructed building on Maple Avenue. And this is where my life had become. This is what I accepted my life to be, and nothing was going to change it. And my mom at the time had a restraining order. My grandma had a restraining order. Thank God for Al-Anon. At the time, she was a rat piece of you-know-what, and she was telling on me. But that was my alcoholism telling me things that weren't true, right? So I got escorted into that back of the building, and like I said, one more time, I'm in front of one of Torrance's finest. On my way back to the gated community, and I'm not talking about the one in Palos Verdes. And for me, that was the easier, softer way. I'd already been able to manipulate those situations and that scenarios. I had a counselor in Long Beach tell me, I had an altercation, and he told me, "Why don't you go back where you're famous? In a little tiny fishbowl, you're a big deal. Out here in the real world, you're a little tadpole in a big pond, and you don't know how to conduct yourself accordingly." And that was a rough one to swallow, and that's some of the seeds that were planted along the way, right? And so I walked into that courtroom. Mind you, January of 2013, I was in a coma for 5 days because of this disease. June, 6 months later, I had staph in my heart valve and in my blood, and they told my mom that if I made it, I'd never walk again. And I was still getting loaded in the hospital on my deathbed. Not proud of it, but that just tells you how insidious this disease is. I couldn't stop no matter what. And I wanted to stop. I didn't want to die, but I had no choice. They're giving me Dilaudid. Why can't I do heroin in my IV? And, they had the cops watching, the security guards watching the hospital. It was gnarly. And again, I suffer from selective amnesia. I forget because my life is nothing like that today. Thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous. And, I ended up in front of that judge, And for whatever reason, in the past, I've never been eligible for programs. Once I'm in custody, that's it. Little did I know the judge was in the program and wanted to give me an opportunity. And he gave me an opportunity to go to a program. And I'd been getting, so this was September 16th of 2013. September 15th of 2013, I was in Los Angeles County Jail and we were getting loaded. We were doing cocaine in the county jail. And I don't even like cocaine. I can't stand it. It's a garbage drug, but I need anything I can do to shut down what's going on in here. And at that time, the more I put stuff into my system, the more reality set in. The more I realized who I am and what I've become and what I was doing and how I navigated my life. And it's a scary place to be in. And I walked into the courtroom and my mom was sitting there against a restraining order and my ex-lady at the time was in the courtroom and the judge gave me an opportunity. Instead of sending me back to the big house, he sent me to a program. And I've been to 7 other programs, been to 13 state prisons. Not proud of it, it's just my story. I'm not trying to get I know they don't give a pin for that, but the other times it was always different. You know, it was either the dancer, which is the spiritual name for stripper, or my grandmother, or always did it for something else or somebody else. At this point in my life, I'd burnt everything to the ground. I'm a basement guy. I like to dig. That sponsorship taught me that. I think I'm a smart, genius individual, right? And something shifted. I don't know what it was. I walked into the courtroom, and I've been in that situation many a times before, and that was the easy way out, always. I didn't have the job. I didn't have the career. I didn't have the ability to ask you, how do I do this thing called life? So that was easy. Give me it. I'll go do it. I'll come home, be healthy, and I'll try it again, right? Something changed. I walked into the courtroom and I realized who I had, like I said, who I had become, what I was doing, and how I was navigating my life. And I didn't even start it. Anyways. And the judge did what he had to do, and I went back to my housing. Can't tell you I behaved correctly. Because you can't go to those places and say, I'm sensitive, I need my mommy. You have to do what you got to do, but I didn't get loaded. And 6 months later, they released me to Acton, Warm Springs. And I showed up to Warm Springs, and a good friend of mine by the name of Brent Mayhew, at the time he was the director of the Beacon House. I've known him since we were kids. He grew up on 10th and Bayview. I grew up on 10th and Hermosa Avenue, and we lived the same lifestyle for a lot of years. I chased them. They were older, and of course I overshot the mark a little bit. And he got sober. And I went to the program, but this time it was different. You know, I was always there for her or for my grandma or for the state paid a lot of money to babysit me. I was trying to impress them. This time I was there because nothing else in my life was in my life anymore. And if you're here and that's not your story, it doesn't have to be your story. I did it for you. Another thing, too, is you're in the biggest insane asylum in the world ran by the inmates, and that's important to me because I've had a lot of people in my life that did statistics or went to school and got their credentials. But this program is one alcoholic talking to another, and those people try to talk to me and try to give me direction, and I couldn't relate to them. They'd never drank. They've never done the things that I'd done, so how am I supposed to relate to them? Anyways, back to that program. I went to that program and I started participating. And I started talking to people that I would have never talked to before because of my pencil brain thinking. There was an individual in the kitchen who I still talk to today, but because of my jailhouse behavior and my jailhouse mentality, I would have never gave the man a chance. And he's a huge part of my recovery. And my counselor up there, too, is a huge part of my recovery. I mean, I had a Post-it. He had me writing Post-its and putting them on my locker and putting them on my bed and underneath my bed and reminding me that what could happen if I made an interesting decision, right? When I got here, I was a piece of you know what, and I was going to die either in a curb or spending the rest of my life in prison. And I went to that program and I sat in the front row, and I listened and I participated. And they brought The Big Book Comes Alive. It's out of Pasadena. And I sat in that seminar all 3 days on the weekend and participated in that whole scenario. And what it started doing is it started cracking open my heart and started making me see the world differently and feel differently and want something different in my life. And the easy does it, sit down and shut up stupid, and I mean all the little things that, you know, because I'm a big, if I can't touch it, I can't see it, how am I supposed to believe it? The whole God thing, you know, like you see weird stuff happen at churches and they build these big gigantic $1 million buildings. It's like, if that's really what you believe, why do you got to build all these extravagant buildings and do all this stuff? Why don't you just believe what you believe, right? So my head's doing overtime. But he's like, man, you got the little guy on the high wire going across the high wire with the wheelbarrow, trusting that he's going to make it across, is trusting he's going to make it across. To get in the wheelbarrow and go across wisdom, that's a little bit different. And little simple things like that, you know, and it started helping me see differently and back up too. In 2000, I don't know, it was 2011 or something. I was in a program in San Pedro, Roxanne Brown at Fred Brown's. And at the time I was dating the dancer, spiritual name for stripper, and I thought I loved her. And but an individual that was there was the house manager, brought a case of water to the morning meeting because he knew. We were walking to the 99-cent store and I found something on the ground. And at the time, he was a parolee. So I called Brent right away. I'm like, Brent, this dude's a snitch. He brought a case of water to the morning meeting. He knows I'm loaded. He's kicking me out of the house. And he's all, look, you jack a-hole. Place is a sanctuary, and you're getting loaded, and you're a big guy, and you're making people uncomfortable. He's going to get rid of you. He didn't go to your house and buy drugs and snitch on you. And I'm like, who am I talking to? Like, what is he? Bullshit. Anyway, so those are the people that started, like, breaking down the wall and giving me this thing, started feeding it to me one bite at a time before I even got a sponsor, right? And so I get out of that program and I call Brent. I was getting ready to get out of the program and I'm scared. I stayed there 4 months. I'm scared to death. Everybody's telling me to stay away from the South Bay. You hang out in the barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut and all this crazy stuff, right? And I'm like, oh my God. My mom and my grandma didn't want me here, and everybody's freaking out. And I call Brent. I go, "Hey, Brent, what's up, bro? Like, I'm getting ready to come home." And he was there at the infectious doctors at Torrance Memorial when I was dying. He's been in my life a long time prior to, and then in recovery as well, and just pushing for me. And he's like, "Look, I could put you on an airplane and send you to Tahiti." He goes, the problem is if you want to get loaded, you're going to find a methadone clinic, you're going to get the people that you want to get, and you're going to get loaded. And I'm like, and he's like, but where you grew up, the roots that people know you and love you and they're going to care about you when you don't even care about yourself is, and it made sense. Came home Thursday night, 2014, January. I walked into the 5:30 men's stag at the Hermosa Beach Lawn Club. I was 280 pounds, big head, not the happiest, or Joe. I wasn't really a vision for you, let's put it that way. I was sweaty, I was uncomfortable, I couldn't sit still in my seat. I sat down next to Scott Canales. He thought I was gonna do something weird to him. And a gentleman by the name of Mike McAfee walked up to me and shook my hand. Frail, older gentleman, you wouldn't think would be walking up to me, first of all. But he walked up to me and shook my hand, and I can tell you exactly what institution I was in and what room I was in when I got the letter that his son had hung himself from this disease. Never met Mike before in my life, but I got loaded with his son on a daily basis for a long time. I don't know about you, but I know about me. Now that I'm on this side of all of this, that's somebody working in my life without me even knowing it. Mike didn't really want nothing to do with me, to be honest with you. But I already knew what I needed for me. I needed to find somebody that never been where I'd been, never done what I'd done, so that my character defects look like a glowing sign. People like Brent that I grew up with can co-sign my BS without me even knowing it. So lucky enough for that man to walk up to me and shake my hand, and we started talking, and there was another guy that was like a Green Beret or something that was in Arizona. I'm like, dude, we'll be fighting in the parking lot. Like, that's not even a question. Like, there's just no way. No disrespect or pun intended, but I don't need that kind of testosterone level in my life. So I had a lot of teachers, a lot of counselors, a lot of state-paid babysitters, which, if you don't know what that is, probation, parole, all those wonderful people. None of them could help me. But when I sat down with that engineer, my life started to change, and he said, you know what, I'll temporarily sponsor you. And we started reading the book. I didn't have a whole lot going on. At that time, I was at Al Russell's Marine House. Came home at about 2 o'clock in the morning. Gentleman said something crazy, and of course I told him I was going to send him to the orthodontist, and they had a morning meeting. They didn't appreciate the behavior, and they voted me off of the mountain, and I'll never forget it because Tim Loudon was standing at the doorway, and he said, good luck with that behavior, and I wanted to. But me and Tim are really good friends today. But at the time, I was irritated and angry, and how dare them? They're not even going to meetings. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Why are they kicking me out? Because I was a prick. So for the first 2 years of my sobriety, I lived on a boat. I lived in my buddy's office, drafting office in Hermosa, and they were coming home 2, 3 in the morning from Sharky's. Oh my God. All of a sudden I got to wake up and I'm security, sober. But needless to say, Mike McAfee started sitting down with me and we started going through the book. I went through the book quickly. I was meeting with him in the beginning. We would meet at the club, and we'd sit in his car because he wasn't really too comfortable with bringing me to the tree section in Manhattan Beach and sitting in his house. And, that man slowly but surely started feeding me Alcoholics Anonymous. And there was just no way, like seeing the steps on the wall, like I always thought, see the steps on the wall, do the steps off the wall, get off the wall results for a lot of years, DUIs, possessions. I never got a sponsor. For me, even now, I have a working knowledge of the big book and a working knowledge of the steps, and I could still look at the big book, and sometimes it still speaks to me in Japanese. I need somebody else that has more experience to help me read that, right? We started going through the steps, and I'm just not one of those people that surrenders very easily. Like I said, I'm a touch feel kind of guy. Step in dog shit once, step in it twice, maybe even barefoot to make sure that's really what it was. I'm a knucklehead like that, and but he didn't really tell me I was surrendering. He asked me a few questions, and little did I know I was surrendering to Alcoholics Anonymous. And it tells me in the literature that we must concede to our innermost self that we are alcoholics. This is the first step of recovery. And thank God I had no idea what I was getting myself into, had no idea, right? Because there's just no way I would have surrendered to that. There's just no way that I would have copped to any of that. And but he told me that, and then, the next step is came to believe. He's like, look, you can eat a pizza one bite at a time, but if you try to eat it all at once, you're going to get sick. And it doesn't say to believe it right now or to believe it next week, to believe it tomorrow. It says came to believe in due time, right? And if you believe that I believe, it can work for you. And I'm like, really? Like that simple? And sure enough, that's how it worked, And by now I'm invited to the house, and I'm coming to the tree section in Manhattan Beach, and we're in the study in his small house in Manhattan Beach. And he tells me that he wants to hold my hand and kneel down and do the third step, and I'm thinking, oh my God. If the guys see me now, I'm going to be in trouble. And what the hell does this have to do? I want to stay out of prison and just not get loaded anymore. You know what I mean? What does this have to do with any of that? Like, no. But I didn't say that. I kept my mouth shut, right? And we knelt and we did that third step prayer, and for the first time in my life, I'm that kid. I don't think the rules apply to me. I got selective amnesia. I got mortism. I got alcoholism. I mean, from the time I was little, my grandma says, if you don't obey the rules, you're going to go to jail. And I just, I always wanted to join karate. I wanted to be a black belt. I didn't want to do no work. I just cut every corner I could. And I left that man's house in the tree section of Manhattan Beach and went home. And for the first time in my life, I realized that the rules apply to me today. I was walking because I had several legs. I didn't have any vehicle to a meeting. And I literally wanted to cross the person's lawn to get to the side street. And I realized that's not my lawn. That's somebody else's yard. I'm trespassing if I cross that person's yard. And I don't think that way. Never in my life have I thought that way. I mean, there's plenty of court documents proving that I don't think that way. And I'm not proud of it, it's just my story. And, the third step prayer was a huge pivotal point, a profound alteration to my reaction to life. Step 4 and 5, there was just some things that I wasn't going to tell you, and there was just things I wasn't going to change, because that's who I am. That's me. That's who I am, and thank God the steps are designed the way that they are for a reason, because by the time I got to 4 and 5, it wasn't a big deal. Mike had me write that stuff down, and most of it's court record anyway, not a big deal. Wrote all that stuff down and went to his house to do step 5, and, he's sitting there listening to my step 5. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. At some point, he looked like he was going to probably throw up a little bit, but the fireworks didn't go off. The sirens didn't show up. And he said, hey, are you done? Are you sure? Did you leave anything out? And at that moment, for the first time in my life, I realized that all that crazy stuff wasn't a big deal. It didn't mean nothing to nobody but me. And there's just no way this unseemingly related steps were going to change this person, the career criminal that came into these rooms. The state of California literally was wanting to throw away the key. And, by then, my behavior was starting to match what was happening, right? And I show up to my sponsor's house in Manhattan Beach and AAA Dickies, and, I had the starter kit. And he handed me an envelope with $300 in it, and I'm thinking, what the hell is this for? $300? He's like, first of all, the gang attire doesn't look too cool coming into the tree section in Manhattan Beach. Second of all, it doesn't match the behavior that you are now glowing. He said, I'd appreciate it if you buy some clothes that fit you. And I had a few choice words that I would like to have said to him, but I didn't. I went and now here we are with the Snuggums. At first it was a little weird and awkward. But I do know today that if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And I don't know, it was probably like a couple weeks later, I walked into the Thursday night men's stag, and I had a hat on, and he stood up and he goes, get over here. And I go to the coffee bar, and he's like, hey. He's like, man, where around the room do you see with somebody that's got a full head of hair and is a decent looking guy, has got a hat down around his eyes like a 20-year-old gangster? And I wanted to tell him to really fly a kite, and I took the hat and I threw it in the trash. I haven't worn a hat since. But I wasn't wearing hats because I'm a Laker fan or because I'm a Dodger fan, or, I was wearing hats because that's part of the attire again. And so slowly but surely, this man got comfortable with me and started breaking down that wall. And we get in, 6 and 7, the character defects. I'm pretty sure I came out to shoot a character defect. And along the way, you don't learn how to become a bellboy and go in the places that I went. And, some of the behaviors, it was sticking out a little bit. And I'm telling him, I'm working on them. And he's like, you worked on your character defects for 40 years. Stop working on them. Let go. And I let go. And, I'm here to tell you that they're there. The difference is I don't have to respond to them. I'm still that individual if I'm not working a program and I'm not doing all 3 sides of the triangle. I like to always say it all the time, if I'm going to meetings and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I go to Starbucks and the lady makes my coffee wrong, she's a human being, she made a mistake, how do we fix it? But if I'm not going to meetings and I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do, and that, see me coming through the door and she's blatantly disrespecting me. And for me, the emotional sobriety is where it matters the most. When I got here, I was an IV drug user, Not proud of it. It's just my story. I know this is Alcoholics Anonymous. I know I can't go to Pat's 2 and cook up heroin. They don't sell it there. But my wife's an IV nurse, and she's a normie, and she wouldn't even have been in the state of California with me, much less the same household. And 99.9% of the time, she say I'm a good man, and it's never been better. But there's that 1% that I got to make sure that the dog bed is still Posturepedic, because I know I'm getting in it. And step 8, step 9. My 8 came from my 4. All that stuff was, what was amazing about the 4 and the 5 is that stuff illuminated. It became a glowing sign to me. This is who you are. This is who you become. This is how you're navigating your life. Now what? And that hurt, because I wasn't raised that way. My grandmother never raised me that way. She raised me to be somebody totally different. And I just absconded and turned into this monster. And, I got into the step 9, and, there was the easy ones. Well, not easy. My mom, my grandma. What's it say? 10 minutes. Okay. My mom and my grandma, and that was good. And then, 3 years sober, my mom, well, actually I was, 2 years sober, and I was going to the Riviera meeting, and I'm walking up the stairs, and an individual that we used to play cops and robbers with, I used to play cops and robbers with. This is after the steps were completed, but step 9 was part of that. But anyways, my mom got sick. My grandma got sick in 2015. I was 3 years sober. She got cancer. She was dying. I'm in Billings, Montana working. And I told her, Grandma, I can get on a plane and come home. I could be right there right now. And she said, no, Anthony, you're exactly where I wanted you to be always. You're working. You're taking care of your business. I never thought that you were going to beat it. I thought for sure they were going to call me and tell me you were dead, or you were going to spend the rest of your life in prison. I can actually leave the world in peace knowing my boy's going to be okay. My mom, 3 years ago in June, got sick with cancer. Me and my mom were running. We got loaded together. We went to prison together. We were Bonnie and Clyde for a lot of years. Not proud of it. It's just my story. She got sober first. She got Al-Anon. She set the healthy boundary, thank God. And then she stopped doing the work, and she installed the buttons, and she knew how to push them, and it was gnarly. And I'm not saying that she wasn't sober. I'm just saying it was just, and I had to set a healthy boundary, because now I got 2 little babies. I got a wife. And she got sick, and when I seen her on the bed in the hospital, frail little old lady, I realized that my mom did the best that she could with what she got, and I was able to forgive all of that stuff. And, through the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I learned that I'm not a bad person. I made a lot of interesting decisions. One of the big things of this step 9 is I wrote a letter to the Hermosa Beach Police Department apologizing for my behavior, because I had a pretty gnarly situation happen in my grandma's living room, and thanking them for all the years of their service of trying to correct the person that I was. And out of that, an individual was at the Riviera meeting who was a Hermosa Beach cop for a long time and ended up becoming an Inglewood cop, and we literally had some pretty serious interaction, but I'd already been through the steps. My life had already changed, and I told him that I can only imagine. And, it's a relationship now that if you'd have told me then that I wanted it before I did the steps, I'd have told you to change your medication. But, he retired 25 years of the police department, and, arresting officer many times, which doesn't even matter now. We've been scuba diving, free diving, showed me his gun safe, which made me nervous. He's in Texas now, but it's a relationship that means a lot to me. When he showed up and seen me and knew where I came from, I gave him the okay that this is going to work for him too. In the beginning, he went back out because he said his ego got in his way, and then he came back, and I think he's like 8 or 10 years sober now. Man, thank God this is a spiritual program and not a religious program, because if I'd have came to American Martyrs and told my story, they'd have told me to leave the room, sir, you're in the wrong building. And, it's, if you're new, they say wait till the miracle happened. In my opinion, the miracle's already happened. You're sitting in the room of Alcoholics Anonymous, and you're trying to listen to people that are sober and trying to do something differently. Don't go back out there. It's not going to get any better. And, the worst thing you can do in Alcoholics Anonymous is not come back. To me, it's all suggestions. There's good suggestions. There's bad suggestions. I've had a lot of helpers along the way. I'll never forget, I was sitting in the second row. I don't know, I was 6-7 months sober. I went through the steps quickly, and I was on my phone texting, and I can't even think of her name right now. Smacked me. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, how are you going to stay sober in your phone and the speaker's speaking and you're being rude? I don't carry my phone in meetings no more, except for if I'm being a timer. I was running around the Alano Club calling somebody a retard, and this older lady was like, hey, haven't you ever thought that people that can't control it, that actually are, might take offense to that? So for me, Alcoholics Anonymous is about being a better person on a daily basis. And unless I'm here working the steps and listening, I mean, I could still come up with an amazing ideas, and I'll call my sponsor and he'll start laughing and goes, not even close. And so unless I'm here doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm a jaywalker. Why? Adult-sized Frogger, it's illegal, it's adrenaline, and I know in the depths of my heart that that's what's going to get me drunk. It's not going to be, I've never tried Fireball, I've never done this, I've never done that. What's going to happen is I'm behaving so incorrectly out there and in here that I got no choice to drink. And drinks to die, you know. For me, I know I'm super grateful that standing right here in front of you today, that I know that the person that takes the first drink isn't the same person that takes the second drink. And my drink bone is connected to my drunk bone, and then all bets are off. And I got a 5-year-old that just on my way over here today told me, where are you going? I said, I'm going to a meeting. And, you know, those kids, you know, I got a 29-year-old that you heard my story. His mom just barely became a part of my life 3 years ago at my mom's funeral. And just this last year, she called me and said, we need to celebrate Anthony's birthday. 29 years old. I've known her husband since we were in kindergarten. They're 2 kids, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what does she want? What does she need? What's going on? Holy no. My wife's like, shut up. Just go. So we all went, and it was an amazing situation. Took a long time, but they finally realized that my head is out and it's not going back. And that's if I keep coming to meetings, work the steps. There ain't nothing like working the steps with another individual and seeing the lights come on. The best part of this is we. It's no longer me or I or you. Cease fighting anything and everybody. Just try it. If it doesn't work, county jail is always going to have space. The graveyards are always going to have a bed for you. Alcohol is always going to be sold at the liquor store. Drug dealers that aren't busted are going to have narcotics. You're here. Stay. Try it. Thank you.